Okay, we've got one final speaker with us today. This is Beth Rosenberg with Tech Kids Unlimited at the Ability Project with NYU. And Beth is going to be speaking to us about teaching and learning for neurodiverse students. Beth, you have the microphone.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Beth Rosenberg. I'm an educator. I teach at NYU Tandon as an adjunct professor, and I am the founder and director of Tech Kids Unlimited. And I'll tell you that story, and I'm going to tell you about our research that we've been working on for the past 3 years. I also, before I start, I just want to thank Richard Ladner, who's been a real champion of TKU, and also thanks to the work of Maya Israel, who's very influential to me. And two people are here actually that I wanted to shout out to: Claire Kearney Volpe and Meg Gray, who I've had the privilege of working with at TKU as amazing educators. And one of my own staff members, my education manager, Jessie Harrell, is here, who's pretty amazing as well. So I love cats. I'll just let you know that. Okay, but before that, after that, I really want to thank also my collaborators on this presentation. You can see who they are. There's no I in team, and the team is made up of our very small staff at Tech Kids Unlimited, CUNY College of Staten Island, and NYU Tandon School of Engineering, and you can hear all the people there. So. What is neurodiversity? Judy Singer, an Australian sociologist who coined the term in her own dissertation in 1999, who is on the spectrum, basically said that we need to accept disabilities as valuable aspects of human diversity by reframing deficits as differences, examining how society contributes to disability, and viewing all people as neurologically unique and deserving of the same rights. So we've seen this definition before in the past 2 days, but as you're reading a little bit more about this definition, I just want to let you know that the employment outcomes of people with autism spectrum often fail to reflect their potential. And in 2012, there was a national survey done by Paul Shattuck, who's an expert in employment, that 44.9% of youth with ASD often fail to never obtain any form of paid employment in their 6 years after high school. We've also found that social skills and soft skills, such as teamwork and collaboration skills, are highly valued by employers, but they're never really targeted by job training programs in specific skill areas. One of our students in 2018, we did a pre-test when we were serving some of our students, and yikes, you could see all my emails coming in. Apologies for that. Really coming back to self-understanding and thinking about improving students' identities as a pathway to better learning outcomes. This is a quote from a student with autism who was asked how he would define autism before he attended a workshop. And as you can see, he has a pretty negative view of this label. Autism is bad and I don't think anyone should have it. It stops people from doing the normal things. I don't have autism. And so, this was a pre-test serving this student. And then at post-test, after he had a 1 week of working, at Tech Kids Unlimited, so it went from 62% of students described challenges associated with autism, and then 37% described challenges associated with autism after 1 week of working with TKU. So let me just tell you that this story of Tech Kids Unlimited is a personal story. To me, the personal is political. I had my second child in 1998. By the time he was 2 years old, he was not only diagnosed on the spectrum, but he was also receiving intervention in the form of speech therapy, occupational therapy, a see-it play therapist, a team of applied behavioral analysis therapists who worked with him for 20 hours a week over the course of 4 years. And you could see, what he looked like before, his interest in technology. He's now what he looks like now in the striped shirt, and my team at TKU, which he has taken classes at TKU now for 10 years. So my kid was beginning to love technology. He wanted to be on a computer. So what did I do? I began my career as an educator working with underserved students at the Guggenheim Museum. So I just basically did what like us devoted moms do is I created a program for him. And now in 2020, we now serve 450 students like him. So why unlimited? People often say that to me, and it's because students with autism spectrum's outcomes can be unlimited if they're taught in specific ways. And that's where the skills, the social emotional, and the self-advocacy and understanding really come together. So the mission and guidelines and mission and challenges is that sometimes our students know why they're having trouble and sometimes they don't. We're using methods we've heard about all week long. It's not like neuroscience. We're using individualized support, scaffolding breaks, one-to-one supports. All of our programs are virtual now, but are held at the Ability Project at NYU Tandon in Brooklyn, which is our beautiful partner. And because we run an out-of-school education program, we often have limited info about who's in the room when compared to a student in school. So, neurodiverse students, they get lost in the shuffle. They're misinterpreted as disinterested, as defiant, as lazy, as ultimately missing out on the learning experience. We started with a 1-week program in 2009, and we just kept growing because the need was there, and we became a non-for-profit in 2014. In 2020, we now have 10 different kinds of programs for youth, teens, young adults, and families, and we operate all year long. And our job is to help students with disabilities learn to recognize what they need, learn to express what they need, and help them develop strategies to help themselves. What do we teach? You can see we're project-based. We're about experiential learning, and an important piece for us is the social emotional CASEL framework. This is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, which began their work over 20 years ago. I think it's really interesting that we have really only as educators started focusing on this in the past 3 to 5 years. In all of our workshops, we have a social worker who steps in to deal with things like anxiety and frustration, because learning computer science thinking can be really frustrating. I like to tell my son when he's really frustrated, about like the idea that his brain is a rubber band, and if he doesn't constantly stretch it in terms of the growth mindset, that it's just gonna snap and disintegrate. So some of the pedagogy that we use includes, universal design for learning, and I know many other programs use this as well. You can see in our slides, like, not only, you could see that we are, doing specific things around engagement, like giving students choices in project content. And, there are some students that come to our program and the parents say, look, my kid probably won't be able to do anything or doesn't want to do anything, and he just wants to be around other students. So just, have him interact with other students, have him work on a computer as best he can, but I don't really care what the, end project will be. So in this particular slide, we're, interested, in, how do our students, engage, and, the relevance, the why, the relevance to the learner's interests, their identities, their needs, and so on. The what, which is how information is delivered. And here's the what. Using different presentation styles, visual, auditory, hands-on. We like to use lectures, demos, follow along, cheat sheets. We use the accessibility features. Speech to text is super important to our students. Many of them are dyslexic and dysgraphic as well. We just use every tool in our arsenal to, get these students to succeed. In terms of participation, we, if students don't want to talk, that's okay. They don't have to, they don't have to get up in front of the class and talk about their project, only if they want to. We do a little pushing with our social worker when we see that a student is able to, but they may have, a little bit of stage fright. And we really try to, think about having our students work on analog tools like paper and, coloring even, and then push them, onto the harder work in our program. So these are just some of our projects that our youth have created, and the youth program is goes from age 7 to 13, and we're all virtual now. And you can see that, students will use, they'll make comic strips, they do editing, they do video editing, photo editing, sound editing. They love memes and GIFs. And then the team projects are more work-based oriented in that they are working on websites and logos and videos for clients. And we actually charge clients a little bit of money. It's considered a donation, and you can become a client of the TKU Digital Agency, and you can see our new website screenshot up on the upper left-hand corner. So you just go to that website, which is just tkuagency.com, and if you have a project that you need done, our teen students will do it for you. And we wrap a curriculum, around the project, and the students feel really, really good that they are, making something real. We also did a project with the Flutie Foundation, the Flutie Foundation. We have a website called Shop the Spectrum, which the students created, and they're, updating it, and they're also in charge of the social media. And if, holiday time is coming up, and if you want to support, the cause, just go to Shop the Spectrum. It's like an Etsy for autism entrepreneurship. Okay, so now that I've told you all a bit about the program, what I really wanted to talk to you about was our research today. And our research started really in 2017. And in 2017, our evaluator, Ariana Riccio, she really wanted to look at the technology skills, the social skills, the job skills, and the self-understanding of teens in our program. And so she sort of like slapped a lot of spaghetti against the wall to see like what was working. Like, were the students really learning, computational thinking and technology skills? Were they improving their self-identity along the way? So that's what we did in 17. In 18, we went and developed a structured curriculum and assessment plan. And in 19, we evaluated the impact of the curriculum. So what I think is sort of really interesting is that in 2017, we surveyed parents and students, and we spoke to 15 students around age 16 and their parents. We spoke to each individual before and after they attended a TKU workshop for 1 week over the summers. And while you can see the research, the data is that students wanted to learn tech skills at TKU, while parents wanted their teen to learn social skills. And so what we learned from this was that students and parents are not always aligned when reflecting on their own teen's career and learning goals and outcomes. In addition, we looked at their soft skills, and we asked the students what skills do you need to do teamwork? And at pre-test, they listed all these different things, cooperation, listening, communication, patience, planning, leadership, and then at post-test, after 1 week, they saw that, wow, wait a second, you need to use communication a lot more, 43.8%. And also they added 2 soft skills, which was collaboration and compromise. They had no idea about that. So then we also asked them about job preparation in 2017. And you can see at pre-test what happened, and then, at post-test. I love this this data set here because, all these kids come in and they're like, I want to be a game designer, I want to do this, I want to do that, in technology. And then, once they realize that like working in technology means sitting in front of a screen a lot of the time, they're like, wait a second, I don't want to do that. I may not want to do that. I may not want to be a game designer. But also, they really didn't understand about jobs at all. Like, this whole idea of will STEM lead to jobs? It's like a complete unknown. So our findings suggest that after exposure to technology-based programming, students adjust their aspirations, highlighting the value of experiential learning for helping students move toward careers well aligned with their interests. Students express interest in STEM jobs, but they're unaware of job preparation strategies to obtain these jobs. We asked students how they would find a job when it's time to look for jobs, and most couldn't tell us how they would do this at pre-test, but only 25% of students struggled with this question post-test. We think this highlighted a strength of our TKU programming, where we often talk about goal setting and planning. This approach to systemic thinking may have translated well when we asked students to think about the problem of finding a job. So after 2017, we thought, okay, we've got to redo everything. And so in 2018, we came up with a new curriculum template by my amazing education manager, Jessie Harrell, who's on this call too. Thank you, Jessie. And we did a couple different things. We thought, well, maybe if we did a 2-week workshop length, that would be good. And we're going to infuse our regular curriculum template, which has a ton of things in it, like breaks and presentation things and room for sensory seeking time. And what if we really infused our regular curriculum template with a real focus on universal design? What would happen? So we redid a lot of things and focused on how our teachers are teaching the material. For us, it's critical not only to implement universal design for learning in the classroom in out-of-school times programs, but to evaluate how that program is working in context and impacting student learning goals. The TKU curriculum template functions to guide the teachers and also became a helpful evaluation tool. In 2018, we asked students, how did TKU teachers help you understand what they were teaching? And basically, what did the students like in 2018 in terms of, how they were learning? And we looked at the strategies the teachers used. At post-test, we wanted to capture how students responded to the UDL instructional practices. This question here, how deals mostly with content delivery or the purple what of the brain. These student responses provide a good example that each learner connected with a different delivery content and engagement style. We asked the students, how did your teacher make the material interesting to you? And this question deals mostly with what made students feel connected to the content, or the green why of the brain. The first 2 responses highlight that the instructors focus on student enjoyment and relevance of content, because many of our students love video games, help students feel invested in the material. And then we continued on that path. I liked when my teacher used, and you can see that student preferences came from this post-test in 2018. You can see the variety of preferences indicated. The one thing that the students didn't like was just public speaking. They would rather learn through, videos, games, direct examples. So in this slide, we asked the students please check all the things that you like the teachers use and we highlight here self-paced activities and activity choices, indicating that providing opportunities for students to choose their mode of participation is a valid way to increase buy-in. And then to parents, we asked them, what skills do you think your teen learned? And they basically said that, it switched a little bit. We were able to push up the social skills, by about 25%. While we incorporate a social emotional learning checklist in the template, applying UDL practices should inherently increase SEL skills by varying engagement and action styles. Social skills are clearly desirable by parents and employers. Of course, soft skills dominate every top 10 job skill list for today's market. And then we moved ahead and looked at 2019. And we went from so we had the UDL curriculum, and then we were more deliberate about connected learning and group work, and with an emphasis on work readiness and soft skills. Teens kind of don't care about social skills. They want to learn computer skills, but the parents want them to learn social skills. And then finally, we were lucky enough, we're very excited to have been awarded a National Science Foundation grant in August 2020 for the next 3 years. Like Ms. August was saying yesterday with the attentional profiles with eye-gazing game software, we're also really interested in attentional profiles, but we're doing it a little bit different. So part of our 2019 survey with students looked at their attentional profiles. We gave them surveys around measurements of executive functioning to see if they were good at switching task to task, or are they a more focused attentional profile where they focus on one thing very intently. We wanted to assess how engaged they felt during a lesson, and to do this, we gave them surveys 4 times a week. We really did, but we paid them for it. We paid them $5 a week for doing these surveys, and each of the surveys were about 2 minutes per survey. It was pretty funny, like the people would the kids would run up to us and say, like, I did the 4 surveys this week, where's my $5? So the plan for the NSF is to identify the evidence to tell us which teaching methods are best suited for students with focused attentional profiles and which methods are best for students who often switch their attention. We're also looking at STEM self-efficacy at TKU. Does the TKU program improve computational thinking? Because, self-efficacy is a person's belief in his or her own ability to succeed in a particular situation, and we want our students to succeed. So stay tuned.
Thank you, Beth. So much information there. What a great talk. I love how you just sort of slid in there that sometimes parents and kids aren't aligned on their career plans. As the father of 2 17-year-olds, that sounded like quite an understatement to me. We have a question from the audience from Richard Ladner, who you mentioned in your talk. He says, hi, Beth. You mentioned applied behavioral analysis. Can you describe what that is and what you think of it?
Great question, thank you. So ABA is an evidence-based strategy that once you have the autism diagnosis is, the strategy that is recommended for students to, for young students and even older students now, older students are using it to help those students. So it's based on the B.F. Skinner and his research with birds. Give a bird, tell the bird to do something and you get a reward. And so, some people have a very negative view of ABA. I have a very positive view, and I have a positive view because when ABA is done correctly, it really is like amazing. I mean, my son, I shudder to think what he would look like without having the ABA. He was taught everything in ABA, from colors to numbers. And in the very beginning, when he was 2 years old, Veggie Booty was the reward. It was like, okay, say the first 10 numbers, in this book, or count from A to Z, say the letters of the alphabet, here's your piece of Veggie Booty. ABA doesn't work on all kids. It worked on my kid. And what's interesting is I see that in our classes, you can kind of tell the kids who have had ABA, the kids who can sit, who can be attentive, those are kids who have definitely had some kind of ABA. And the kids who are sort of all over the place, they are, harder for them to focus. And it's a little bit of, turn your child into an automaton in a way. But, the important piece, once you have the straight ABA, is to then generalize. And how do you take the learning that happens in their room, their little room, or their, little corner with the ABA therapist, which is done in 2-hour increments at a time, and how do you generalize it into the outdoor world? When my son started with ABA, there was no such thing as it was called a BCBA, a baccalaureate. And so I got just very lucky. Now, in order to provide ABA to students, you have to have a BCBA, which is a very hard degree to get. And teachers usually get it, psychology students get it, et cetera. And I'll tell you something, you get a lot of money once you pass that BCBA test.
Well, I can understand how that can be motivating for some young people. Okay, thank you very much, Beth. I appreciate it. Also, I'm going to post in the chat, Ruth Farmer shared that your blog went live on the CS for All website today. So I'm sharing that with all of our participants too.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Sure, thank you, Beth. Okay, with just 2 minutes left in our speaking time here, I'm going to share some wrap-up thoughts with everyone. Let me see if I can get this out for everyone to see, and then we'll head right into our break. I will assume that this is working for everyone, but if not, I'll read what it says. So the white papers, which is where we're going to head to after our short little break on the break with the breakout groups, are meant to be a tangible outcome of this workshop, but by no means are they meant to be the end of what we do together. They're meant to be sort of a springboard for something that can come next. And that can be some collaborative research that happens with people from your group. You might have made some connections here with some of our speakers, with some of the other people in your breakout group that hopefully you'll want to carry forward. I know I have with my breakout group, and I've seen some people get to know each other in our breakout group that hopefully will turn into some good networking, professional collaborations down the road. We do have a timeline for these white papers. I'm going to ask all of the breakout groups to spend some time at the end of your time together today thinking about how you can get a good draft written by December 15th. And so you'll have to figure out what processes you have to put in place for that. Do you want to meet again virtually? Do you think you can do it all via email or some other way that you can get that done? December 23rd will be a due date for comments. So on the 15th, when we receive all your drafts, we're going to share those internally with this whole working group here so that we can read each other's white papers and offer comments to those groups. You might see that there's an intersection with something that you're working on, or just have a suggestion or an idea that you want to comment on that paper. You won't be able to make edits directly into that paper, but your comments will then be reviewed and incorporated by the authors of that paper, and they'll have a week to think about what they want to do with all of that. And then after that week, we'll publish the papers, and we're going to aim for January 12th for that. And we're going to announce them to the world and use all of Microsoft Research's social media muscle to make those as widely shared as possible. Another possible next step with all of this is an upcoming call for proposals with our AI for Accessibility team. You'll receive this link when we send out the wrap-up email later today, and you can find more information about that. Something else that I hope that we can do with this community that we've galvanized here, and hopefully we're catalyzing some new collaborations together, is think about whether or not we want to have a follow-up workshop. And it'd be great if someone in the audience here decided that they wanted to host the next one and invite a program committee to help them assemble it. I think some of us might be interested in helping to support that as well, and think about how we want to carry all of these great, progress that we've accomplished together forward, and keep the momentum going. So keep an eye out for the feedback survey. That'll be really important for us to know what worked for you, what didn't work for you, how can we keep improving our model for delivering these kinds of events. And so we hope that you'll take a few minutes to respond to that when you get it later today or tomorrow. Okay, so that's it. Now we're 2 minutes over time. Please take your break that you need to stretch your legs and do whatever you have to do for the next 15 minutes or so. And do plan to come back to your breakout groups. And we'll see everyone together again at 12:15 for the final wrap up of the breakout groups today. Okay, thanks everybody.